For 30 years, the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission has played a pivotal role in shaping and safeguarding Cyprus' capital market. From its early establishment to its evolution into a modern and respected regulatory authority, its journey, resilience, adaptability, and continuous progress.
We have modernized the legal framework for the Commission. The Commission became independent from the Ministry of Finance, in line with international best practices. And at the same time, we have strengthened the framework that governed the operations of the service providers, of the investor advisors, offering better protection to the investors. Unfortunately, although we have managed to address these shortcomings, the high price, the bubble burst, and a lot of people lost a lot of money at that time. Although there were warnings, also from our side, but also from other people, including my successor, Marios Kliridis, who was very vocal, warning people about the risks related to investments in any stock exchange. These warnings were dismissed.
The most important decision of my time was the decision of the government to join the European Union. We had to harmonize with European legislation. Second most important event is when we decided to attend the IOSCO meeting that was held in Istanbul, Constantinople. They were trying to stop us from going. IOSCO supported our attendance, and we managed to go. Another important event was the cooperation that we had with foreign securities regulators that were investigating some events. And the last, I think, important event that we had was the arson of the Securities Commission. They came and burned all our computers.
Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission faced serious challenges. We had to cope mainly with the consequences of the world financial crisis, which started in 2007 and hit the economies and the financial markets of all developed countries. In addition to this, in Cyprus, we faced another problem, which was a result of the reckless behavior of banks. Banks increased sharply their bank lending. They expanded their operations abroad, and we witnessed also aggressive takeover bids. Under the difficult conditions that prevailed at that time, CySEC, in cooperation with the supervisory authorities of other EU member countries, adopted several measures in order to reform the financial system. All these measures were in line with the recommendations and guidelines of the De La Rosière report.
The most significant development was the transformation of CySEC into a modern, credible, and forward-looking regulator, fully aligned with European standards. From the beginning, we focused on ensuring timely harmonization with the major directives such as MiFID II. I think we were the second that we transposed it into our national legislation, UCITS, IFMD, and the fourth and fifth AML framework. These reforms strengthened transparency, improved governance, and significantly enhanced investor protection. At the same time, we worked strategically to position Cyprus as an attractive destination for investment services and collective investment funds, contributing to the diversification and enhancement of the Cyprus economy. This was reflected in the remarkable growth of the market, with supervised entities increasing from around 200 in 2011 to more than 800 by 2021. Equally important, we strengthened our supervisory and enforcement approach. We also strengthened CySEC as an organization as such, expanding its resources from just 58 that we all were back in 2011 to 180 staff, building specialized departments, upgrading our systems and technological capabilities to enhance overall effectiveness. Importantly, we embraced innovation early on through initiatives such as the Innovation Hub that we created in 2018. We supported the development of a fintech ecosystem.
The introduction of new technologies and digitalization, it's one of the key changes that we have been observing in the last decade or so. So we're seeing innovations such as distributed ledger technology or blockchain technology. We're seeing innovations now, especially with the introduction of AI or machine learning. All of these are transposing the way that the markets operate. We're doing all the things that are necessary to embrace the new technologies, but at the same time, as regulators, we need to be vigilant. We need to be able to mitigate the risks that might be coming from these new technologies, because our main goal is to protect the investor, to ensure market efficiency, and to help to have a healthy growth of the market. As CySEC, we're fully harmonized with all the European regulations and directives. And we are actively participating in the discussions at the European level, but also at the global level, at the level of IOSCO, where we have the human capital, we have the expertise in our human capital, and at the same time, we have the new technologies. We're applying and using the new technologies to help us to better regulate and supervise the markets. In the future, we would see more and more assets being digitalized and offered with digital means.
With a clear vision and a strong institutional foundation, the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission remains committed to fostering a transparent, resilient, and forward-looking capital market with investor protection at its core. CySEC, 30 years of oversight, stability, and growth.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. Welcome to tonight's program. My name is Ekaterini Gouma, Officer A at the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission, and I will be your Master of Ceremony. On behalf of CySEC, we are delighted that you are joining us on this milestone celebration. We have an excellent lineup of speakers and a timely discussion on regulation, innovation, and the evolving markets. A few quick housekeeping notes before we begin. Please set your mobile phones to silent mode. If you need to step out at any time, you are welcome to do so quietly and rejoin us. We will do our best to keep to the times set in the agenda, to respect our speakers and your schedules. In a couple of minutes, we will proceed with a formal program with the opening address by His Excellency Dr. Nikos Christodoulides. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your patience and understanding. Mr. President will be shortly with us. Just a couple more minutes, thank you. Thank you very much. We'll now continue with our formal program. Please join me in welcoming His Excellency, Dr. Nikos Christodulidis, President of the Republic of Cyprus, to deliver the opening address. Mr. President, the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I'm very pleased to be here today to mark the 30th anniversary of the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission, an institution that has played a defining role in shaping the integrity, the credibility, as well as the growth and resilience of Cyprus's financial markets. An institution that has evolved with our country and with our economy and has helped to shape both. And today's anniversary, this anniversary is not only a celebration of a 30-year journey, it is a recognition of institutional maturity and steady progress, and above all, of a sustained commitment to safeguard the public interest in an ever-changing financial environment. Dear friends, when the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission was established, Cyprus made a forward-looking and strategic choice to build a modern system of capital market supervision, a system grounded in transparency, investor protection, and market confidence. And this was a very conscious choice that set CySEC's journey on a clear path, a path of credibility, predictability, responsibility, and trust. By ensuring effective supervision and legal certainty, the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission strengthens investor confidence and reinforces Cyprus's position as a credible destination for high-quality investment. And in doing so, indirectly supports a core government priority to transition the Cypriot economy toward a more productive, resilient, and knowledge-based growth model. 3 decades later, the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission continues to evolve alongside the Cypriot economy. It adapts and responds to the deepening of financial markets, to increase cross-border activity, and to rising supervisory complexity. It stands as a cornerstone of our financial architecture, as an indispensable institution whose role is not just symbolic or ceremonial, but one of substance, requiring constant vigilance and decisive action. Dear friends, the accession of Cyprus to the European Union back in 2004 marked a decisive turning point for financial supervision. The Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission assumed demanding responsibilities within the European supervisory framework, aligning national practice with the European Union law and actively contributing to supervisory convergences. And this was a very important transition that strengthened our institutions and at the same time our credibility as a member state within the European Union. It is therefore particularly fitting that today's celebrations coincides with the presence of the European Securities and Markets Authority at a time when Cyprus holds the rotating presidency of the Council of the European Union. Over the past days, Cyprus has had the privilege of hosting important European supervisory meetings and exchanges, bringing together representatives of national and international authorities. And their presence here today also reflects the close cooperation that underpins the European supervisory framework. It also highlights the role of national institutions in supporting the effective functioning of our Union. And in a European Union, especially at today's international framework that seeks deeper capital markets integration, effective national supervisions are indispensable. The Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission, through its active engagement with the European Securities and Markets Authority and its European counterparts, has demonstrated that even small jurisdictions like Cyprus can be reliable, can be constructive and credible partners, making meaningful contributions to European financial governance. Dear friends, the past 30 years have tested regulators globally. Financial crisis, market misconduct, technological disruption, and more recently, increasing geopolitical uncertainty have all underscored one essential truth. Strong supervision is not an obstacle to sustainable growth. It is for this reason that the Commission mandate has repeatedly required it to act decisively in these very challenging circumstances, always guided by investor protection, market transparency, and financial stability. At the same time, and throughout the years, the nature of financial markets has changed profoundly. We have witnessed rapid digitalization, the emergence of new financial products and platforms, as well as greater participation of retail investors. And all these developments call for supervisory authorities to combine rigor with adaptability. And despite this challenging international environment, I should underline that the Cypriot economy continues to demonstrate resilience and solid performance. And this, of course, is not incidental or accidental. It is the result of deliberate choices. It is the result of a number of factors, among others, institutional credibility, sound governance, and confidence in the financial system. Ladies and gentlemen, a central theme of today's event is innovation and emerging technologies, including, of course, artificial intelligence. Technology is reshaping our economies, our societies, and our financial markets. It is doing so at an unprecedented pace, and this new reality offers opportunities for efficiency, inclusion, and competitiveness, but it also introduces new risks. The discussions that will follow on regulation, on new products, artificial intelligence, and the digital transformation of markets reflect the real policy and supervisory questions that authorities across Europe and beyond are called upon to address with determination and foresight. For supervisors, the challenge is twofold. They need, on the one hand, to support innovation while ensuring at the same time that it upholds trust, transparency, and fairness. CySEC engagement with these issues, from fintech to AI-related risks, reflects a forward-looking supervisory philosophy, a philosophy that embraces innovation but anchors firmly in responsibility. Dear friends, no supervisory authority can be effective without capable people and sound management. And this is what defines the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission. It is a credibility that has been built on the dedication, professionalism, and integrity of its leadership and staff, past and present. And I want to take this opportunity on behalf of the government to express my sincere appreciation to all those who have contributed to CySEC mission over these 3 decades. Our government remains firmly committed to supporting the Cyprus Security and Exchange Commission in strengthening its human, technical, and organizational capacity so that it can continue to meet its expanding responsibilities at both national and European level. As we look to the future, its role will not simply remain important, it will become even more critical. Dear friends, let me close with this. European capital markets are at a pivotal moment. Initiatives such as the Savings and Investment Union and the green and digital transitions will redefine market dynamics. And in this shifting landscape, our challenge is to strike the right balance. We must foster market efficiency and competitiveness, but never at the expense of integrity, investor protection, or financial stability. And in this context, the Cyprus Security and Exchange Commission must continue to evolve as a modern and proactive supervisor, a contributor to European regulatory thinking, and a trusted authority for investors and market participants. Its path over these 3 decades also illustrates a very important lesson that within the European Union, credibility is not a function of size, but of professionalism and commitment to rules. This is where small member states like Cyprus can exercise real influence through the quality of their supervision, their reliability, and their credibility. And this is why this anniversary is a moment of pride, but also of reflection and responsibility. A reminder that supervision is a continuous endeavor. Let me congratulate the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission on this very important milestone and wish that continued success in the years ahead. May the decades ahead be guided by the same commitment to to integrity, to professionalism, and to responsibility, in service always of the financial stability of our country, of Cyprus, and of course, of the European Union. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, thank you for your keynote speech. Please remain on stage to receive a presentation award by our chairman.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, thank you very much on behalf of CySEC for the appreciation of the work that is being done on CySEC and all the support throughout the years of you and the government in making sure that the markets in Cyprus and abroad are working efficiently, effectively, and investors are protected. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, Your Excellency, President of the Republic, Mr. Nikos Christodulidis, honorable political party representatives and member of the House of Representatives, honorable Deputy Minister to the President, Chairwoman of the European Securities and Markets Authority, dear Verena, and Chairman of the International Organization of Securities Commissions, IOSCO, dear Jean-Paul, dear colleagues from all the national competent authorities that have been here in Cyprus the last couple of days, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just start by saying that it is a great honor to welcome you to the anniversary conference marking the 30 years of the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission. Over the past 3 decades, the Commission has played a central role in shaping, supervising, and strengthening the Cypriot capital market. From its early years of establishment to its evolution into a modern and respected regulatory authority, its journey reflects resilience, adaptability, and continuous progress. So throughout this period, the Commission has remained committed to safeguarding market integrity, enhancing investor protection, and aligning with European and international standards. It has successfully navigated periods of significant financial challenges, while also embracing innovation and the opportunities of a rapidly changing financial landscape. Today, as we reflect on this important milestone, we also look ahead. The financial sector continues to evolve, driven by technology, sustainability, and increasing global interconnectedness. In this dynamic environment, the role of effective regulation remains more important than ever. So, Your Excellency, distinguished guests, our vision, CySEC's vision, is to position the Cyprus securities markets among the safest and the most reliable and forward-looking investment destinations. So we pursue this vision by supporting the sustainable growth of our capital market and fostering trust through responsibility, innovation, and financial education. This vision aligns with the government's strategic priority to strengthen Cyprus as a resilient, competitive, and internationally connected economy with a strong focus on innovation, sustainability, and high-quality financial services. So we express our sincere appreciation to His Excellency, the President of the Republic, the Minister of Finance, and the House of Representatives for their continued support, including the strengthening of the regulatory framework and the provision of the necessary resources that enable CySEC to effectively deliver on its mission. So, ladies and gentlemen, as CySEC marks its 30th anniversary, it is a timely opportunity to reflect on the key milestones that have shaped its evolution into a modern, credible, and fully EU-aligned supervisory authority. At the early stage of its establishment, CySEC began its journey in a very different financial environment. Markets were less integrated, retail access to investments was limited, and the regulatory frameworks were still developing. A defining milestone was certainly Cyprus' accession to the European Union in 2004. This marked a decisive transformation from a national framework to a full alignment with the European legislation, significantly strengthening investor protection, transparency, and market integrity, while expanding the scope and the complexity of supervision. Since then, CySEC has actively contributed to successive waves of EU reforms and to the development of a harmonized European regulatory framework. The global financial crisis of 2007 and 2008 reshaped the regulatory landscape, accelerating the need for stronger investor protection, enhanced prudential standards, and greater transparency. So in response, the establishment of the European System of Financial Supervision and ESMA in 2011 reinforced supervisory convergence across the EU, with CySEC actively contributing to this framework. So I would like to thank ESMA and its chairwoman, Verena Ross, as well as all my colleagues from the national competent authorities for their valued support and cooperation, and for honoring us with their presence tonight. During this period, the Cyprus investment industry has expanded and internationalized significantly, with regulated entities now exceeding 800. CySEC has supported this growth by enabling innovation and new services, while ensuring a safe, transparent, and well-regulated environment. At the same time, it has strengthened investor protection through enhanced monitoring, stricter disclosure requirements, and targeted supervisory action. CySEC has also adapted to emerging areas such as digital finance, financial technology, and a new sector now of the crypto assets, striving to balance innovation with risk mitigation while placing increasing emphasis on financial literacy and investor education. CySEC's regulatory sandbox, which has been established a couple of years ago, reflects our commitment to practical engagement with fintech innovators, supporting responsible experimentation in areas such as blockchain and distributed ledger technology, the AI tools, RegTech, digital asset infrastructure, while ensuring that supervision remains effective. We are already exploring how AI, artificial intelligence, may change asset management and market oversight. Internally, CySEC has evolved from a very small structure back in 1996 into a modern authority of over 200 professionals with multidisciplinary expertise and enhanced capabilities. Over time, it has developed a robust and a risk-based supervisory model supported by data-driven analysis, thematic reviews, and technology-enabled supervision, allowing for more effective oversight of a complex and evolving financial sector. Today, CySEC stands as a resilient, a forward-looking, and fully integrated European supervisory authority, committed to effective regulation, strong investor protection, and the sustainable and healthy development of the financial markets. Your Excellency, distinguished guests, let me now turn to the European level. Our distinguished speakers from ESMA and IOSCO will shortly address EU regulation, new products, and market developments. So I will focus on CySEC's role within the European supervisory system and how we approach our responsibilities. A key priority for us, for CySEC, has been the continuous enhancement of our supervisory practices, including the integration of technology and data-driven tools to improve both effectiveness and efficiency. This enables a more proactive response to emerging risks, particularly those linked to digitalization and innovative financial products. At the same time, our hands-on supervisory experience with complex, fast-evolving and digital-first business models allows us to contribute meaningfully to the European regulatory dialogue. We aim to support the development of frameworks that are not only robust in principle, but also proportionate and workable in practice, protecting investors while enabling innovation. Cyprus also brings the perspective of a smaller member state and financial center. In this context, we can play a constructive role in promoting balance and inclusiveness, ensuring that the benefits of market integration are shared across all member states. A truly effective single market must be built on a level playing field. This is a particularly important period for Cyprus at the European level. Our role within the Council of the European Union reflects our commitment to contributing actively to Europe's strategic direction, strengthening competitiveness, supporting innovation, and reinforcing the Union's position in an increasingly complex global environment. In a world that is shaped by geopolitical uncertainty and rapid technological change, building a resilient, competitive, and open European financial system is not only a priority, but it's also a necessity. So as we look now to the future, allow me to offer a few reflections on what I consider to be three defining tests for regulators in the decade ahead. So first, investor protection in a digital age. We are witnessing a profound transformation in the way individuals access and engage with the financial markets. Innovation has broadened participation, reduced the costs, and created new opportunities for diversification, transparency, and inclusion. These developments hold significant promise for both the investors and the wider economy. Yet, this progress is accompanied by new and evolving challenges. The same technologies that enable access can also facilitate misleading practices, unsuitable offerings to the investors, and increasingly sophisticated cross-border fraud. It is therefore imperative that our regulatory frameworks evolve in tandem. At CySEC, we have strengthened our supervisory and surveillance capabilities, making greater use of technology and data to identify and address risks in a timely manner. At the same time, we recognize that investor protection extends beyond supervision alone. Promoting financial literacy, particularly in high-risk areas such as digital or crypto assets, is essential to ensuring that participation in financial markets is both informed and responsible. Second, digitalized products and innovation. So the rapid development of digitalized financial products, including crypto assets, tokenized assets, whether it's financial assets or real-world assets, algorithm-driven services, and platform-based investment solutions, is fundamentally reshaping the market landscape. These innovations offer clear benefits in terms of efficiency, accessibility, and choice. However, they also introduce new layers of complexity, opacity, and risk. Products are evolving faster than traditional regulatory cycles, often challenging existing frameworks and blurring the boundaries between financial services and technology. So in this environment, us as regulators must strike a balance, a careful balance, supporting innovation while ensuring that appropriate safeguards are in place. This requires forward-looking regulation, enhanced product oversight, and a clear focus on governance, transparency, and suitability. It also calls for greater supervisory agility and a deeper understanding of technological developments. And third, market integrity. The proper functioning of financial markets depends fundamentally on their fairness, transparency, and resilience to misconduct. As markets become more digital, interconnected, and fast-moving, preserving their integrity becomes both more complex and more crucial. Digitalization enables rapid scaling of both legitimate activity and harmful practices. Misleading promotions, market abuse, and fraudulent schemes can spread quickly across jurisdictions and platforms. Addressing these challenges requires robust regulatory frameworks, enhanced cross-border cooperation, and strong, consistent enforcement. Maintaining market integrity is not only about preventing misconduct, it is about ensuring that markets remain orderly, transparent, and worthy of investor confidence. CySEC approaches these challenges guided by enduring principles, independence in judgment, consistency in action, and a steadfast commitment to continuous improvement. In doing so, we reaffirm our responsibility not only to regulate markets, but to uphold the integrity, strengthen confidence, and contribute to a stable and sustainable financial future. So, Your Excellency and distinguished guests, in closing, please allow me to pay tribute, I think, to all those who have shaped the journey of the Commission over the past 30 years. The chairpersons that are here with us today, the members of the board, and the executives who have served with dedication, vision, and integrity. Above all, I would like to express, though, my deepest appreciation to the people of CySEC, the teams, executive teams, and the staff. This milestone belongs to them. It is their professionalism, their resilience, and their unwavering commitment that have built the Commission into what it is today. Their contribution goes beyond duty. It reflects a shared belief in the importance of strong institutions and a well-functioning financial system. So we owe them a profound debt of gratitude for their role they have played in this remarkable journey. And as we mark this anniversary, we do not only celebrate the past, we also reaffirm our responsibility for the future. Our message is clear that CySEC remains firmly committed to higher standards, to markets that serve the real economy, and to the protection of investors and to the preservation of market integrity. So thank you all for being with us here today on this important occasion. Thank you, Your Excellency, for being here with us today and for honor us with this milestone with your presence. And I would like to stop here and thank you very much. And we look forward to the next part of our event.
Dr. Theocharidis, thank you for your remarks and your perspective on the regulatory landscape. Your Excellency, we are deeply honored by your presence this evening. Mindful of the weight of your responsibilities, we express our sincere gratitude as you leave. We will now turn to a Fireside Chat focused on regulation, new products, and how markets are evolving. Please welcome our speakers, Mrs. Verena Ross, Chair of the European Securities and Markets Authority.
Thank you very much. Where do you want me?
You can sit over there, please. A second. Mr. Jean-Paul Servet, Chair of the International Organization of Securities Commissions. They will be joined by our moderator, Mrs. Eleni Nicolaou, ex-journalist responsible for the communication of CySEC, who will guide the conversation.
Good evening. It's a great pleasure to have with me both chairs of ESMA and IOSCO, and I would like to begin by exploring how you assess the latest developments in financial markets and their implications for regulation and supervision. How can regulators strike an effective balance between fostering innovation and ensuring investor protection. Mrs. Ross.
Thank you very much. And first of all, I want to say a big happy birthday and congratulations to CySEC. Congratulations on 30 years of history. It's great to be here, and it has been a very productive and fantastic couple of days as part of the ESMA board meetings, so thank you. Looking at all that is happening, clearly financial innovation is changing fundamentally how our markets work, and I think George explained that very well in his speech. At the same time, a lot of what the innovation is bringing is also further fostering our possibility to bring investors into the market, to engage, to make sure that investors can engage with products, with financial firms. And so this can also be mutually reinforcing. So for me, it is really about using the best of what innovation can bring, and at the same time making sure that we have the right guardrails, the right regulatory framework to ensure that market integrity and investor protection are maintained in that new financial environment. And here, trust and confidence is absolutely key. We need to make sure that investors have the right information, that the people who are providing services to them are doing that in the best interest of the client, are offering the right information to make informed decisions. And the other point that I wanted to make was really that with financial innovation, and particularly with the digitalization of the financial services, we are seeing more and more cross-border business happening. And I think that is really where the European framework for ensuring that we actually work together and ensure that we collectively are creating the right regulatory framework, but also that we have a common approach how we actually supervise day-to-day is really essential. Because in the end, it is in that new digital cross-border world that we need to ensure that market integrity and investor protection and financial stability are maintained.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sever.
Well, thank you for the question, but allow me first of all to start with an amazing remark. Of course, I'm very happy to be here to celebrate your anniversary, George, but also, I would say, the excellent collaboration between you, all your predecessors, I would say, for our common history. And my remark is amazing because you are an adult. I hope so. You are 30 years old, but I am still a teenager. Which is quite strange, because I just celebrated the 15th anniversary of the Belgium FSMA, but at the same time, I had the pleasure to work with all of you as former chair and chairwoman of the CySEC. We changed the landscape in Belgium. That's the reason why I was chair before the launch of the FSMA. But I have to say that it's always a pleasure to be back in Cyprus, because we know that CySEC is involved, of course, in ESMA, but also in the ERC, the Open Regional Committee of IOSCO, and the board chair. So, and our work, I would say, our challenges, our friends, our partners, by definition, are at international level. So if I may now come back to your question, financial innovation. I think that many people, maybe also in this room, think that our friends and colleagues, supervisors, are a little bit old-fashioned, that we are against innovation, that we don't like innovation because it means a source of challenges, risk. I don't think that it's the truth, and that's something we all share because we have many colleagues and friends in this room. I think that for us, innovation is essential, not only in order to facilitate, I would say, the life of many market players, but also for us, because we are using more and more RegTech, subtech materials. But I think it's fair to say that, generally speaking, innovation means, I would say, how to improve efficiency, how to broaden access for investors to financial services. Never forget what it means an app for the young generation, my kids, your kids. They are active investors only through the app, I would say. So it's a new life, and we need to pay attention to that. And of course, I would say a game changer in order to deepen capital market. But for this, if we want to be successful together, supervisor, political decision maker and investor, the magic word for that is trust. And it means that if we want that innovation can be sustainable, it means that it must be trusted by market. For this, we need three things, I would say. First, a well-known principle. The second aspect is engagement. And the last but not least, I would say, how to stay vigilant. The first principle is a well-known principle for the community of ESMA and IOSCO. It means same activity, same risk, same regulatory outcome. That's very important if you want to be logical, to have the same approach and to ensure level playing field. The second, engagement. All the people you see on the first row and also seated in another row, they are not afraid to discuss with market players. Our role is to have a day-to-day dialogue with people coming with new solutions, new toolkits. Of course, we are not in an ivory tower. That's real. One example, sandboxes, I would say, in financial innovation hub. In Belgium, I have the pleasure to manage with the Central Bank of Belgium, because we are in Twin Peak models, for more than 5 years. So my first decision was to ask two young people to discuss with other young people coming from new solutions. And I was quite surprised, because most of the time, I would say there was no problem with us. The problem they have when they develop new, I would say, product, it's about VAT, cross-border VAT, but never, I would say, about license. Of course, most of the time they don't need a license if they want to facilitate a cross-border payment, for instance. That's very important, the dialogue. Of course, after some time, firms should not remain in a sandbox indefinitely, and at some point, I think I may say, they must be ready to graduate and comply fully. Last but not least, engage doesn't mean that we don't have to stay vigilant about new and evolving trends and their impact. And one last comment, if I say, tokenization. That's part of my day-to-day objective, to see to which extent at national level, and Verena is doing the same at regional level, and at international level, as IOSCO chair, how can we be helpful for, I would say, this new wave, this new world of tokenized market? What does it mean for us? Everybody is supportive of the idea. But what does it mean for us? 24/7 days market open. That's a real challenge. How to ensure liquidity? How to ensure that we are able to have an added value for the compliance with market abuse? And that's the reason why IOSCO already launched, I would say, a new work stream in order to be helpful to all NCAs, CySEC, for instance, because our role is to be at IOSCO level, a global membership organization, and the objective is to provide a toolkit for our members. So that's our life about financial innovation.
Thank you very much.
But no more with a modern mic, no? Okay. You see that we challenge the capacity.
These things happen when we are live.
You can.
So I would like to ask you, because SIU is another important for the financial markets. So how do you assess the current progress of the SIU and its progress and its prospects for a deeper and more integrated capital markets in Europe? Mrs. Ross.
Yes. Obviously, the Savings and Investment Union is a huge priority for Europe. We really need to make sure that we have financial markets that can ultimately support the European economy. And so the whole objective behind the Savings and Investment Union is to turn household savings into productive investments for the benefits of companies and to the benefits of our citizens, who, with the engagement in capital markets, can actually invest in their future and make sure they provide for their old age. So this is about channeling investments, but also about making sure that we actually deepen the cross-border market within the single market. Because in the end, if you look particularly at smaller markets, really what you live by is having the big single market in the European Union. So we need to break down some of the barriers that still exist and make sure that we actually integrate our European markets to the best effect. And so the markets integration and supervision package, which the Commission proposed at the end of last year, which is now actively being negotiated under the Cypriot presidency, is a really important part of the Savings and Investment Union plan. And because it is looking at how can you break down the structural fragmentation within the EU markets, removing barriers, making sure capital can flow freely, making sure that we reflect properly the cross-border reality in which we live. More specifically, maybe to just touch on 3 measures. One is what you asked earlier, innovation. There's a lot in the markets integration package actually about how can we try to foster the ability of the European markets to be open to innovation, to be attractive, to ensure that we actually have the right framework for new DLT tokenization. Jean-Paul talked about it, all the areas where we see much progress. The second one is how to improve the trading, clearing, and settlement environment to make sure that participants can choose where the most efficient services are being provided, and that regardless of national boundaries. And the third one is really more efficient and harmonized supervision, recognizing the need that we need to match with our supervisory framework the market's reality. We have more and more cross-market players, but we also need to make sure that the domestic players can scale. And for that, once they become systemic, cross-border, the question is, can we be more efficient in actually having EU-level supervision for some of these biggest market infrastructure players than we can be if we try to basically fix that by 27 supervisors trying to work together. That will remain the standard for most of what we do. That's very clear, but in certain areas, it might make sense to go beyond that. And I certainly see a lot of political momentum now to try to share that ambition and to move forward. Certainly, as ESMA, we stand ready to help and support what we can. I think we have shown that we can be an effective day-to-day supervisor, and so we look forward to seeing what will be the outcome of some of these further discussions.
Yeah. Well, for this question, allow me to speak not in my capacity as IOSCO chair, but as chair of an NCA in Belgium and not as spokesman of the Belgian government. First of all, I think it's important to stress that the initiative taken by the European Commission and by Commissioner Albuquerque is an excellent one, because it's a real, I would say, flagship initiative for the European Commission, because everybody agreed that we need, I would say, if we believe in Europe, and that's the case for all the people here, that we need deeper, more liquid and more integrated capital market to support our long-term and common growth, competitiveness and the financing of our policy objective. At the same time, I am a doer. I would say I think that I'm well known to be forward-looking to find solutions. I don't belong to the group of people who would believe that we start from scratch. That's not the truth. We made a lot of progress the last year. Everybody seems to be disappointed by the capital market union paper, but it's not the truth. I have the pleasure with all my colleagues here, members of ESMA and Verena, to see that we are already able to make progress, I would say. If you think about the fact that there is no need anymore to have a prospectus when you intend to launch a secondary a public offering, a capital increase, I would say. I had to explain to my staff in Belgium that my added value, their added value, was rather limited for classical, I would say, capital increase. It was a tough exercise, I would say, to explain. I think that we are not so useful. But at the same time, it's still absolutely fascinating to see that the majority of Belgium-listed companies are still asking for having the approval of the Belgium supervisor for this prospectus, which is no more necessary. So it means that our added value for credibility is very important. And I think that we can make a lot of other progress. For instance, for me, to have, I would say, the duty to get the approval of a prospectus whenever you issue a typical corporate bonds, I would say plain vanilla, it's not for me an objective. I think that we could drop that. That's very important. Second important aspect, it was really important, and it's important to stress that was the honesty, the transparency of Commissioner Albuquerque. When they had the first discussion, public part of the first ECOFIN, I would say, a discussion about this small book, only 500 pages for MISP, I would say, Commissioner Albuquerque was very transparent by saying, normally, dear colleagues, Minister, we would have to discuss about the real problem, which means taxation, different company law, framework, and insolvency regime. These are the key aspects if we want. But of course, we know what it means, unanimity, 27, not so easy. And then she added, there is no silver bullet. There is no silver bullet. So it means that if we want to be successful, we need to collect many different initiatives. And for me, that's very important if we want to have the investor confidence and to promote greater retail participation. Because let us be clear, if we think that we have real challenges, and that's the case, in order to finance our new objective about defense, green agenda, digital, it's not about Alibaba and Monster. It will be about how to promote startup, joint venture with all excellent universities that we have all around Europe. So it means, I would say, most of the time, very small business. And for this, we need to have easy to understand product. I am convinced for so many years that trust means a capacity to have a link, I would say, between easy product to understand, simple product to invest, and of course the trust of the market. And this is, I would say, one of the most important aspects, because without robust consumer protection and well-informed investor, effort to channel more household savings into capital market will face some limit, but we need to have, I would say, a positive attitude about that.
Taking on this last comment, Mr. Servet, I would like to ask both of you, what are, in your view, the most decisive developments likely to shape financial markets in the near future, and how well prepared are existing supervisory frameworks to respond to these challenges and changes? And also, taking into account that we live in a world where fundamentals and versus external shock are reshaping financial markets.
Do you start?
If you go.
Well, I think that, again, if we want to be successful, is that we have to admit that our role is to look beyond short-term market movement and focus on the structural trends shaping a global financial market. So it means that for, I would say, the incoming years, we will have, by definition, a mixed blend of, I would say, technological advances, AI, of course, if not, the next speaker will be disappointed, and tokenization, of course, but also geopolitical development. If I may ask to many people on the first row, when I start my career, when I had the pleasure to arrive at the time at the Banking Commission in Belgium as a junior in 1992, geopolitical risk. It disappeared of all our trading book. Everything was saved. There was no political risk. 30 years after, it's number one, ranking number one. So we need to adapt ourselves if we want to have an added value. And more generally speaking, it means, I would say, a matrix of risk, challenges, opportunity. That will be, I would say, maybe the most important challenge for us supervisors. It will be the speed, for sure, and the fact that we will have to tackle many new developments, I would say, at the same time. Allow me to give one example, I would say, private credit. First, it is fair to say that this market, after the great financial crisis, the subprime crisis of 2008-2009, it means that, of course, we had a significant exponential growth, but it means also that private credit was able to support economic growth and was able to play a role in, I would say, diversified portfolio. And it offers financing outside the banking sector and is to some extent aligned with the objective of SIU. But our role is to see, okay, what happens now? We have a test about market resilience for private credit and private equity, particularly given potential vulnerabilities related to valuation, lending practices, leverage, interconnectedness, and liquidity. And the question is what are the lessons that we are drawing from the current episode? For this, at IOSCO level, but it's also the same in many other organizations, we took the initiative to publish, I think I may say, sorry to say that, I hope that it's not too arrogant, but we took the initiative to publish the first paper in 2023 about what it means, I would say, emerging risk in private finance. And we were able at the time, which is not necessarily a surprise for specialists, to identify that work, I would say, risk relating to the opacity of private market and also the importance of working with data. IOSCO, ESMA, we know the capacity of ESMA to provide for data. We are very active members with the support of many of the Financial Stability Board. We launched, I would say, a new task force about the use of data relating to NBFI. Who had hoped that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, sorry, at the time of the start of the FSB, some people were stressed, also in the IOSCO ecosystem, that we would have a kind of umbrella. But I was the first one to say, no, excellent idea to have the FSB, if they are happy with our work. They don't intend to launch a work stream, and that's exactly what happened. They rely on expertise for asset management. And then they promote, and I will give two examples. I would say the recent letter sent by Andrew Bailey. For me, one of the best piece of analytical work. If you want to have an overview of what happens in the financial sector, you go on the website of the BIS and you print, if needed, I would say you print the letter of the chair of the FSB to the G20 leaders. 3 pages. And with Andrew, it's less than 3 pages, it's 2 pages. And you know everything about. And the comment made by, I would say, by Andrew was very clear by saying, of course, the conflict in the Middle East triggers significant financial market reaction, but that the financial system absorbed the shock, highlighting the resilience, including through post-crisis reform. And he was also, I would say, Andrew also stressed the importance of having the capacity to face uncertain and unpredictable global financial environment. And I think that was important to state that. And he repeated that when he had the pleasure to go for an hearing in the Parliament, in this case, at the European Parliament last week. Andrew made similar remark about what he's used to call the double of triple whammy, typical British, no? I would say. What happens, what if major stresses in private credit coincide with higher volatility, or if multiple crises occur simultaneously and amplify each other? That's very important, I would say, and that will be a work in the coming years. How to manage many new different aspects with different speed, and the speed is increasing at the same time, and that's of fact our duty as supervisor to be there in order to continue strengthening our understanding, to use data. Data is our work every day, and we are going the right direction. And of course, to modernize supervisory framework to support the growth agenda and to ensure that our framework remain fit and proper in a, I would say, changing financial landscape. That's our leitmotif altogether.
Thank you very much, Mr. Soros.
So I share a lot of what you said, Jean-Paul. I think if I look forward, I certainly believe we need to be prepared for financial markets that are impacted significantly by the geopolitical development, the macroeconomic developments. And that is something which we just have to be conscious of, that the speed of how markets will react to some of those fundamentals is clearly speeding up, and that is changing. I think the other thing that Jean-Paul also mentioned, but I want to emphasize a bit more, is the digitalization. I think what the new technologies are doing in changing how financial markets are functioning, whether that is in the professional world of trading, whether that is in the ability to settle in nanoseconds, instantaneous actually through the TLT technology, whether that is the AI revolution that we are seeing, not just in financial services, but also significantly in financial services. All of that is really changing completely how markets work and increasing also that link into the cross-border and international transmission and interconnectivity that we need to be very conscious of. I'll not go into the non-bank financial intermediation, private credit. I think Jean-Paul talked about that extensively. What does it mean for us as regulators and supervisors? I think first of all it means we need to ensure that we are able to react quickly, that we are agile, that we can respond in a speedy way to these market developments and allow also our market participants to act quickly and participate in these new developments. So we need to be forward-leaning in our supervisory approaches. We need to be enabling while providing the right guardrails to make sure that the framework is supporting our underlying objectives. And we need to be risk-based. I think I very fundamentally believe we need to make sure that we are able to focus on the biggest risks. Data is part of that. We need to have the data to make those risk-based judgments. But in the end, it is about making sure that we focus on the areas where the greatest risk is, where proportionate, where lower risks are, and that we make sure that we, as supervisors, are clear where our priorities are, and we also ensure that ultimately that supports investor protection, market integrity and financial stability, but also the innovation and the competitiveness of the European capital markets, which ultimately is what drives Europe forward.
I would like to thank you both for these interesting statements.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for this very interesting discussion. We will continue with the theme of transformation with our next keynote, focusing on the third wave of AI and what it means for our institutions and workforce. Our next keynote explores one of the defining shifts of this decade, the real-world impact of AI on economies, institutions, and jobs. Please welcome Mr. Huy Nguyen Trieu, co-founder of CFTE and author of The AIification of Jobs.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Can you properly hear me? Yeah? So, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, dear friends, I'm very honored to be with you tonight. And a very warm thank you to Georges and the amazing team at CySEC for the invitation. And of course, congratulations for your 30th anniversary. I wish you the best for the next 30 years and beyond. And we don't know what the next 30 years will be, of course. But we know that AI will play a very important role in this. And so this is my objective for the next 30 minutes, to take you through what is the future of AI, what is the impact on our economies, institutions, and our workforce, and what should we do about it. So let me start first with your views in the room, and I will ask you a question. What do you think about AI? What's your view on AI? Do you think that AI is a revolution, or do you think that AI is an evolution? So who thinks that AI is a revolution? Few people in the room think that it's a revolution. Who thinks that AI is an evolution? So more people would think that AI is an evolution. So by the end of this presentation, you will have my views. So let me start first through the perspective that I'm bringing tonight is a perspective from different worlds where I was in, from financial services, from AI, and also and especially about workforce transformation at scale, where we work with governments and regulators globally in Europe, Middle East, and Asia. I'll start first with Mythos. Who has heard about Mythos? A lot of people. So what happened? What happened a month ago with Mythos? Shockwave. Shockwave, why? Suddenly we had an AI that was so powerful that its creator, Anthropic, decided that they should limit basically the release of Mythos. Impact on financial sector, regulators, financial institutions. So what's behind Mythos? Let me take you through what is behind Mythos and what has happened. 26th of March, a month ago, some internal data of Anthropic was exposed. In this set of data, there was some information, including a press release about Mythos, or actually it was called Capybara, so it's the same. It was about a new model that was extremely powerful. How powerful? Incredibly powerful in terms of cyber capabilities, for example, with the ability to detect vulnerabilities in pretty much every operating system on every types of devices. And what was worse is that not only it could find the bugs, it could create actually attacks to expose those bugs. All of that with no human supervision, better than pretty much all human experts. And what was the worst part of it, or best part, depending on how you look at it? Mythos wasn't even created for that. Mythos is just a normal general purpose model in the same way that you use ChatGPT, in the same way that you use Claude, that would have been the next version of Claude. So what is Mythos and why is it important? Mainly for those three reasons. We have now reached a level where we have an AI where capabilities exceed basically the best human experts. It can not just think, it can act, it can execute, and all of that without human supervision. So really important, but what I would argue is that Mythos is not the story, actually. We shouldn't focus too much on Mythos because it is just a signal. And what is that signal? It is the signal that we have reached what I call the third wave of artificial intelligence. The first wave of artificial intelligence was 10, 15 years ago until 2022. It was AI through machine learning. AI that was really good at prediction, which we have used in banking for a long, long time, which we have used in our day-to-day world, for example, for spam filtering. This is the first wave of AI that we could use as a tool. The second wave of AI was November 2022, ChatGPT. AI that can think, that has very strong cognitive abilities. And what is the third wave of AI? Is AI that can not only think, but execute and act. In other words, AI that can use the same tools that we all use, email, using a Word, Excel, any kind of digital tools that we have, that can act. And the first signal was OpenClaw 3 months ago. Some of you might have heard of OpenClaw, but the very strong signal is Mythos. And so Mythos is a signal that we have squarely entered into the third wave of artificial intelligence. So do not miss it because it's really important. It's not the future, it's the present. So let me show you the present. Present is, for example, the head of Claude Code today does 100% of its programming through AI. He doesn't program at all. 100% of that is done through AI. He's not the only one. A lot of programmers are now programming totally through AI. Second example is Notebook. Notebook is something which, when you look at it, it looks like a Reddit or Facebook. The difference is that it's only for AI agents. It's not for people. It's not for humans. If you look at those discussions, you couldn't know. Because the first discussions are, for example, about, how do I do this tool, better, or how can I program this? The same kind of things that you would ask, for example, some of, other programmers. But you also have more philosophical questions. For example, should I lie to my human? This is the kind of questions that you're starting to have. It's not theoretical at all. Notebook exists. It was acquired by Meta, actually. To make it even more concrete, what I did for you 2 days ago, so I was packing for Cyprus. So while I was packing for Cyprus, I thought, why don't I show you a demo? It took me 1 minute. So what did I want to do in this demo? I wanted to understand what are the risks of AI in financial services. And for that, I said, why not look at very credible sources like IOSCO, ESMA, ECB, FCA, CySEC's, for example, find me all the risk of AI in financial services. From there, categorize them, put them into categories, and then create an Excel spreadsheet where you will do all of this for me. You will list all those different risks, and then why not create a Word document where you will give me a summary of what's happening, and then why not put it directly on my website. So because I only had 1 minute, I did this. If I had more than 1 minute, perhaps I could have said, why don't you send an email to CySEC and IOSCO and ESMA and do a LinkedIn and tag all of those people. I could have done it. So this is what I wrote. It was, for those who are interested, it was in Claude Code. Claude Code is directly connected to my systems like Google Workspace. It's connected to my email, for example. It's connected to my website. It took around 10 minutes for me the time to go and pack. And then after those 10 minutes, I came back, and I will show you the result of this, which is that after those 10 minutes, you will have all of those things that I have asked. Of course, in terms of the quality, I know I have there are economists in the room and very serious people. I haven't reviewed any of this. So if you want to do those kind of things, of course, you need to review it. You need to have your human judgment. You need to have this. But you see what is possible today in pretty much 10 minutes. This is what was done on my website. Then this is the Word document with the whole summary. And if I wanted to work on the data, I would have all the data from all those different sources which are being referenced directly in Excel. If you're interested, you can scan this QR code. I just put it. I haven't made any modifications at all of what was done directly on my website and what took me 1 minute to do exactly this. Again, I haven't reviewed it, so I'm sure there will be mistakes. I'm sure there would be things that wouldn't be right. As an economist, you might say, there are things which are not right. Totally true, but you see the impact that we can have by using AI today at the institutional level, and things that would have taken hours or even days could be done in 1 minute. This is the third wave of AI. Let's take a step back. Let's take a step back because otherwise it will feel very confusing, which is all of those things are happening at the same time. I think that if there were a few things to remember, I would say there are 3 trends which are really important to understand. The first trend is that AI is becoming incredibly powerful. What do I mean by incredibly powerful? In 2023, there was a benchmark that was launched to see how AI would be able to detect bugs in real programs, not fake programs, in real programs. At that time, AI was able to score 1.7%. And those who created the benchmark thought that they would have, for a long, long, long time, to create the benchmark. Now, they are starting to think of, what is my next benchmark? Because now we have saturated the benchmark. In 2.5 years, we have gone from AI that was incredibly bad into being better than humans on those very, very complex things. Second thing, AI is becoming incredibly cheap. 1 million tokens of GPT 3.5 were $20 3 years ago. 1 year later, it was $2. 1 year later, it was less than 20 cents. A few months later, all of this technology that were in very big clouds and data centers could be run on my MacBook. And a few months later, it can run on my phone. So AI is becoming incredibly cheap. And then finally, AI is becoming incredibly autonomous. It can work on its own. 3 years ago, AI could work the equivalent of what would take a very good professional 4 minutes. After 4 minutes, it would start to hallucinate, to make a lot of mistakes, etc. Today, it can do the equivalent of 12 hours, of a very good professional work of 12 hours. So you give me work, it takes me 12 hours. I would do a lot of iterations. I would do a lot of mistakes. I will try. AI can do the same for 12 hours. By the way, I realize that it's very small on the screen. Anybody is interested in the data, just send me a message and I'll send you all the data. But so what's happening? What's happening is that we have a technology which is 10 to 100 times better and cheaper every single year. This is the world of exponential AI. We are squarely in the world of exponential AI today. What does it mean? It means that what is possible today will really cost nothing tomorrow. You have to make this assumption. You also have to make the assumption that what is not possible today could be possible tomorrow. And when I say tomorrow, it's not a figure of speech. I say tomorrow, meaning we are Wednesday today, it could be possible tomorrow, Thursday. This is really what is happening with artificial intelligence today. And so the potential is enormous. We have unlimited cognitive abilities, but the risks are at the same time extraordinary. And so what do we do? What do we do? First, let's try to understand what is the impact, and first the impact on the economy. If there was one thing to take off all of this, we are in a world now where AI has decoupled cognitive labor from human headcount. This is what has happened. Before, if we wanted more cognitive work, we needed more people. Today, that's not the case. What happens when we decouple both? That means that either I can do the same with much less, or I can do more with much less, or I can do things which were totally impossible. For companies, that means that there are 3 trends which are happening. The first one is what I call jobless growth. Companies now can grow without having to hire more people. At the same time, new opportunities. They can do things which were impossible or too expensive before. And let's not forget something which is coming very quickly now in the Silicon Valley and in other places, is the rise of entrepreneurship. We are seeing much, much more entrepreneurs because the barriers to entry has gone down a lot. Let me show you some numbers for this. Microsoft, for example, 2016-23 was growing at 13% per annum, and as expected, they were growing their workforce by more or less the same, 10%. Since 23, they have been growing even faster at 15%, but they didn't change their workforce. Actually, they're starting to reduce their workforce. So this is jobless growth. On the other hand, new opportunities. I think there's not a better place here than being in Cyprus and talking about Demis Hassabis, Nobel Prize, founder of Google DeepMind, and which I learned is half Cypriot and half Singaporean. What they have done with DeepMind, in terms of protein structure, they did in 1 year what would have taken 1 billion years of work of PhD. Amazing in terms of the progress in science that we managed to do. And then in terms of rise of entrepreneurships, companies like Cursor, for example, Lovable, Replit, and others, they did in 1 year reach $100 million of revenues, 30 people. It used to take 10 years, 500 people. This is why we're starting so much more entrepreneurs today, because the barriers to entry has gone down a lot. It poses a challenge to us as society. Why? Because our normal transmission mechanism, which is basically the bridge between people and economic participation, comes from me having a job. If I have a job, I make money, I consume. That creates demand. That's really good for companies. There's economic growth, and from there, there's taxation, employment increases, and that's the normal virtuous cycle that we have pretty much in all economies in the world. When you start breaking this transmission mechanism between cognitive labor and employment, then that raises a problem. That raises a problem because all of that is broken. At the heart of all of this is the part on job. If we understand what happens to job, then we can understand what happens to the future of our society. So this is what I wrote in the AIification of jobs, which is one of the first structured analyses of the impact of AI on jobs, where I looked at the transmission mechanism that came from AI into jobs. For that, I used a framework, which I've used for a long time at Oxford 10 years ago, which is called the CDE Innovation Prism. It helps to understand the patterns of technological impact. And it says that basically you always have those three different types of patterns. One, cheaper, better, faster, are companies like Amazon, for example, that compete with bookshops by doing the same, cheaper, better, faster. D, for different, is companies like Facebook, not competing with anyone, creating something that didn't exist before. And E, for enhancing, are companies like Salesforce that enhances existing businesses. By the way, if you like frameworks, use this one. It applies to pretty much everything, and not just AI, technology, tokenization, blockchain applies also, and not just jobs. But if we apply it to AI and jobs, then actually we can predict three patterns happening in parallel for AI and jobs. The first one is that we are seeing displacement, and not just displacement, mass displacement of people who are being out-competed by AI. On the other hand, we are seeing the emergence of a new class of professionals, what we call the supercharged professionals, people who do really, really well because they are leveraging AI with their domain experience. And then finally, creative disruptors are just a few people, few individuals who can make such a big impact now. People like Sam Altman, for example, Demis Hassabis, like the creator of OpenClaw, those people who are just individuals and can make such a big impact on all of us. So at the macro level, all those three are happening at the same time, and since I wrote the book end of 2024, we have seen all of that evolving already. So that's the macro level. Let's think a bit more at the micro level. What's the difference? What's the difference between someone who will be mass displaced and someone who will be a supercharged professional? That's a really important question for me as an individual. That's a really important question for my organization or even my nation. And so who does well in an AI world? And that's a really hard question. That's a really hard question because we could think that it might be a question of job function, seniority, technical skills. It's not obvious. For example, job function, you might have heard of Klarna, the buy now, pay later, which made a lot of noise because they replaced a lot of customer service agents by OpenAI and ChatGPT. Actually, out of 1,000 customer service agents that they had, 700 were let go, and they used ChatGPT instead, but 300 were actually supercharged and got more responsibilities. So for exactly the same job function, some people lost their jobs, and some actually did really well. It's not a question of seniority also. The IMF, 2 years ago, in their report said, young people will do really well because they are very good with AI. Older professionals will struggle for the opposite reason. So far, that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing some actually older professionals do really well because they have domain experience, they know how to structure their thinking, they know how to delegate, and they use AI as a junior, whereas we see some younger professionals struggling, not because of AI, because they don't have domain experience. And because they don't have domain experience, when the AI says the answer is A, they don't know if it's A or B. And so what's the difference? This is why we introduced the performance hexagon. So the performance hexagon is a contribution framework that says that in any kind of organizations, you have different types of contributors. Underperformers are those where, when given a task, they do it slowly or they make mistakes. Task robots, when they are given a task, do it really well. They are very good executors. Problem solvers do not need to be given a task. When they are given a problem, they solve it independently. System thinkers, for the same problem, they not only solve that problem, but all similar types of problems by putting in place processes and systems. And superstars do not need to be given problems. They will identify the problems and the opportunities themselves. So I know what you're thinking, because the first time someone looks at this, you're thinking, where am I, or where are my colleagues? So just remember that this is actually context dependent. It's not intrinsic to me. So for example, at Citi, I used to be at Citi, we'd have a lot of task robots, because in large organizations, we need a lot of task robots. But if I'm only a task robot and join a startup, for example, I might become an underperformer, because in a startup, there's no one who will tell me what the tasks are. But what we know is that in a world of AI, underperformers and task robots, including very good task robots, are much more likely to be replaced by AI, and problem solvers, system thinkers, and superstars are much more likely to be enhanced by AI. And that explains why, for the same job function, for the same seniority, for the same skills, some people are doing really, really well in a world of AI, and some are falling behind. That's because of this. And so what does it mean also? It means that in a world of AI, we should be really careful, because learning AI is important, but it's not sufficient. If I'm a task robot and only use AI as a task robot, I'm going to be a faster task robot. Doesn't mean that I will have a job, not tomorrow. So focusing on the future-proofing skills is even more important. Okay, so what should institutions do in a world of exponential AI? We've looked at the people side, the workforce. So in a world of exponential AI, I think we have to recognize that institutions were not designed for a world of exponential growth. No. Institutions, in general, were designed for a world which is a slow-moving world. So this is the challenge. And so that means that the gap that we'll talk about is not a gap of technology, it's really an institutional gap. And so in a world which is profoundly changing, we cannot just incrementally change what we do. We have to totally rethink our operating model. That's the same as, for example, if you have a river barge and you try to cross the Atlantic, I wouldn't recommend it. You would need to totally rethink how you want to do it. And so we cannot just make incremental changes to our institutions in a world which is exponential. Two challenges for that. First challenge is that AI is moving way too fast for any leader, or actually for any organization, to be able to plan for everything. So forget about 2-year, 3-year, 5-year planning. Really, really hard to do it in a world where, I see some people smiling, in a world where tomorrow can be very different. Second challenge, a lot of things to focus on. What do we need to focus on? Is it about data or governance or strategy or cybersecurity or whatever it is? It's a lot of things to focus on. So let me give you the answer. And this is based on the fact that we work with a lot of institutions globally. I think there are 3 areas, 3 pillars which are incredibly important. Technology, governance and regulations, and talent and people. If I want to go a bit further, actually, in my reasoning, I would say technology has more than enough attention at the moment, knowing the hundreds of billions of dollars which are going to the space. Regulation and governance now has a lot of attention also. Talent and people is the most underinvested area, and at the same time, the highest leverage in the world of AI. In other words, if I had to summarize it, that would be our biggest leverage is to create people who can create the future. It would be, for example, creating the employees who will drive the transformation of my organization. It would be the public servants who drive policy. It would be the regulators who, by themselves, transform it. This is the biggest leverage by far. How do we create people who create the future in our organizations or at nation level? We need a system. It cannot be random. In terms of a system, we have open source our frameworks, for example, for how to create a system. You can see on the internet, it is totally public. How do we create a system to transform a whole organization at scale? Amazing examples globally, for example, the UAE, Singapore, where we've had the chance to work for the last 10 years, where you see what it means at a system level, from national direction, workforce transformation with Skills Future, sector transformation with MAS and IBF and others, and making sure that through the end of it, from universities and young graduates to professionals, everybody has the skills to work in a world of AI. This is about building the capability infrastructure. So let me summarize where we've been for the last 30 minutes and the journey that we've been on. We started from mythos. And so mythos, if you remember, it's not the story. Mythos is just the signal. It's the signal that we have entered the third wave of AI, where artificial intelligence can work autonomously, can think, and can execute. Growth is exponential, 10 to 100 times every year, whether cheaper, better, more autonomous. It means that we're in a world which is changing because we have totally dissociated cognitive labor from resources, which means that for the workforce, we're seeing those three patterns happening at the same time, of some people falling behind and mass displacement, some people doing incredibly well, the supercharged professionals, and a few people, the Sam Altman, the Miss Hassabis, the creative disruptors who, as individuals, can make such an impact on all of us. It's not a question of just AI skills, it's much more than that. It's the ability to be a problem solver, to be a system thinker, to contribute in a world which is changing very quickly. And at the end, it's about not augmenting our operating model, it's about rethinking our operating model. And amongst all of this complexity, if there was one thing to do, is to create the people who can create the future. This is the biggest leverage by far. So the third wave of AI has started. It started 6 months ago. Incredible potential, extraordinary risk. Whether AI will transform our society faster than we think, no question about it. It will. And so the only question, I think, for all of us is whether we want to be in the driver's seat or in the passenger seat. For me, being in the driver's seat, those are those opportunities. Being in the passenger seat is very risky today. So I think for all of us and for our institutions, I wish for all of you to be in the driver's seat and do really well in the world of AI. Thank you very much.
Mr. Trieu, thank you for your insights and for translating a complex topic into clear implications for leaders and regulators. We'll now move to our final session, a panel discussion on regulation of the financial sector in the digital era. To close the program, we will bring together senior regulators to discuss how supervision and policy are adapting in the digital era across innovation, risk, resilience, and market integrity. Please welcome Mr. Carlo Comporti, Commissioner at the Italian Commissione Nazionale per le Società e la Borsa and Chairman of the Digital Finance Standing Committee of ESMA. Mr. Claude Marx, Director General of Luxembourg Commission de Surveillance du Secteur Financier. Dr. Vasiliki Lazarakou, Chair of the Hellenic Capital Market Commission. And our Chairman, Dr. George Theocharidis.
Well, first of all, let me welcome the three distinguished speakers. Carlo, the Commissioner from Consopt, Claude, the Director General for the CSSF, and Vasiliki, the Chairwoman of the Hellenic Capital Market Association. So our previous speaker, I think, certainly set the scene for us.
For sure.
And his perspective on this third wave of AI. And, I think, one of the important things, obviously, that he mentioned is that, we have unlimited potential with this type of technology, but at the same time, and for us, I think that's very important, there's also extraordinary risks, right? So the question, I think, for all of us is whether our work, the supervision that we're doing, can keep actually pace with this extremely rapidly evolving technological landscape while continuing to effectively safeguard investors. So I'll start with the first question with Vasiliki first, and then I'll get the perspectives also of the other discussants. So Vasiliki, building on what we just heard, where do you see to be the most meaningful opportunities emerging in the financial services sector, and to what extent can us, the regulators, realistically leverage those technologies to enhance investor protection? So what do you think, what technological, institutional, or human tools do we need to develop in order to remain effective? And I'll get also the perspectives of the other discussants.
Thank you, George. Let me start by congratulating the CySEC for the 30 years anniversary. I think it's so important to have 3 decades of dedication to the financial world, especially the changing environment. And I'm happy to see that all your predecessors are here and they're going to be awarded, which shows so much, the importance that CySEC has in Cyprus. So congratulations for this, and also congratulations to you personally for everything that you have done and for this very nice conference. Now, I was listening before, and I was thinking that at the time that Huy was speaking, that I was in the same mindset, because I was thinking that we're speaking about myth, AI myth, okay? Mythos is a Greek word, so this is why I'm saying myth. So we're speaking about a myth, and the direction should be AI mind, from AI myth to AI mind, which means that we need to make sure that we also have intelligence in the way we use the artificial intelligence, because it is very important. The changes are extraordinary, okay? And we're speaking about, right now the financial world is changing tremendously. So we need to make sure that we all understand what is going on, and that we keep all the regulators are up to the update, which can never be possible, as Huy told us. So what I wanted to say is that it is clear that whenever we have 2 sides of a coin. We have let's say, the positive things that come out of new technology, and how we leverage new technology in the way we supervise, and also how we can build better systems in order to supervise, and at the same time we have new risks. So what is for us very important is to make sure, what I believe as well, is that we cannot really protect investors with yesterday tools against tomorrow's, let's say, risks. We need to make sure that we adapt every day in all these challenges of technology and that we leverage technology to our benefit in order to make sure that we can supervise better. In Greece, the Capital Market Commission, I remember I was always speaking since I was appointed for the, let's say, how we can better leverage new technologies, and I was seeking to see, new methods in order to make sure that we are up to date. And what we did is that we launched a huge project for digital transformation, which is going to be funded by RRF, and it's going to change completely our supervisory, let's say, capacity, because we're going to use more digitalized methods for supervision. And when I was working for this digital transformation, I'm still working for this because it ends at the end of June, we had all these soup tech tools, and we were speaking about artificial intelligence solutions. And Jean-Paul, I was once in the IOSCO board, and the chairwoman of the Indian authority was next to me, and she was explaining an artificial intelligence tool that they have in order to detect the market and see whether there are any announcements that are fake, with fake news and misleading announcements and all this. So then at the break, I went and I asked her, can I understand better how you use this artificial intelligence tool? So she explained to me, she gave me some more information, and now we have built with the professors a new algorithm, and we're right now in the pilot stage, and we are going to detect the news in the Greek market. So that was one thing. But what is very important is to make sure that we always are up to date. And we are now doing the digital transformation, and at the same time trying to fit in any kind of artificial intelligence, let's say, solution that we could use in order to be better, let's say, equipped and try to detect mis-selling patterns earlier, identify harmful products, intervene before risks become systemic, and all this because we want to make sure that we can follow let's say, the news in the technology sector, and make sure that supervision is smarter. Faster can never be as technology, but make sure that our role is to make supervision smarter, and so that investor protection is stronger.
Thank you, Vasiliki. And let's get the perspective also from Claude.
Yes, thank you, George, and good evening to you all. It's a pleasure to be here. And, CySEC may have existed 30 years. I have been around in my authority for 10 years, and I recognize at least 3 chairs of CySEC. That is a pleasure to see them here tonight. I think, this presentation by Huy was really eye-opening. And the first reflection that came to my mind is that today, when we think about introducing AI tools in the authority, and I think it's not a unique case for Luxembourg, we would like to rush to prompting, teach people, what is AI more or less, but then jump into generative AI type of prompting and coding to some extent, and we forget the big picture. And I think the presentation that we saw really should almost be delivered to everybody to create awareness of course, the risks and the opportunities in a classical way, but this is not a classical play. This is about what we saw, extraordinary opportunities, but also extraordinary risks if we are in the driver's seat, as was explained. And I think it is really important to have this big picture, because the revolution, and for me this is a revolution that we are witnessing here, is not like the evolutions that we have seen over the past 20, 30 years. And at the same time, this creates, if it is well managed, a huge opportunity that can also revolutionize the way we are approaching supervision. In a classical way, you know, in this linear world, you know, people come up with new products, but they also come up with new risks. They create new risks. They create new fraudulent schemes. And in a way, we always run a little bit behind to catch this and then to react to this and to come up with remedies. And the classical way to do it, of course, is regulation. And I think in Europe, we have been world champions of regulating. We have been world champions of thinking of all possible risks that there could be going forward and then addressing these risks even sometimes before we have even seen the risk. And by doing so, we have also stifled innovation. I'm not going to repeat all this history, but I think what is interesting now is that if we get this right, and if we use AI in a clever way, we can break this cycle. We can get a boost in performance, and the way this should probably work here, and I haven't made up my mind on this, but you know, we break this cycle and we can jump to a much more performing supervision, but we will do this in you know, not being reactive, but being proactive, and also by having much more powerful tools that we have never had, and by using these tools, we can get away from this, you know, breaking innovation and breaking development through trying to cover all possible risks in the classical way. So that's a little bit some ideas that came to my mind when I listened to this before.
Thank you, Claude, and let's get also the perspective of Carlo.
Yeah, first, thank you so much, George, for first invitation, second, big celebration and happy anniversary. Last year we had the 50, so we are more, let's say, ahead of you. But we also had the opportunity to, let's say, to be together with, let's say, the former chairs, with the staff. That's really something that should be reminded and underlined in the spirit of talent and people matter in organization, and I truly believe that this is the case. I feel that whatever, let's say, I've been preparing, thinking, is already old based on let's say what we heard. So I tried to think at what are the key messages among others that we got, okay, in the discussion we're having. And in terms of opportunities, and I will not repeat what has already been said, I retain two. First, the technology is bringing, let's say, access. And access means, Verena mentioned, the digitalization brings the capacity for having new investors in the market. We have to remind that during COVID, we assisted globally to an increase in market activities. That is something, is an example in itself, but technology bringing capacity to access bring also new opportunities for investors. But also means cheap. Cheap and fast means that it can really break some operational inefficiencies, bring in, let's say, efficiency. I will take just two very clear examples. One is on DLT operation. The atomic settlement is probably revolutionizing the way in which we are conducting certain operations in financial market, and that would give new access, impetus at certain market activities. And the second is, let's say, just to remain on the example of access, AI on advice, financial advice. Again, we heard that there are important risks, we should be mindful, but also having the capacity to have direction and increasing direction in terms of quality. I think it should not be underestimated. Of course, taking out the risk that we are all conscious of.
Thank you very much, Carlo. Let me turn now to the risk side. So where do you, from your perspective, where do you see the critical risks or the blind spots emerging from the use of the technology, whether it's within the supervised entities or practices or the regulatory framework itself? And whether and what extent does the current framework and the current regulatory setup, including, for example, the EU AI Act, can help us or give us the tools to address those risks rather than adding complexity without a corresponding increase in supervisory capacity? So let me start with that question with Carlos' perspective.
Yeah, that links to my last words, of course.
Yeah.
The opportunities are never disconnected from risk, and here about the technological developments, we should be mindful and conscious that there are tremendous risks. I think at the previous presentation we are fully aligned. These risks are, let's say, put in some old risk, but in new context or new emerging risks. I think that we should cover both. And again, there is another key word that I think it has been mentioned by all previous speakers is the speed. Speed of and scale, and I would add also the complexity of the development. I'll say, taking all the combination of all of these makes the picture rather, let's say, risky. But I will focus primarily on three in order to be a little bit more concrete. The first is under our, let's say, eyes, but I think that the prioritization exercise that ESMA has been conducted puts cyber on the top since a while, and rightly so. It is associated, of course, to the capacity to ensure operational resilience. It is a high risk since years, but I think that recently all the developments are only exacerbating these risks. And I think that what has been mentioned on the recent AI developments can also identify new vulnerabilities that adds to the risk itself. Now, the second is probably the complexity, because if there is something that is difficult to understand, by definition is also difficult to manage. And the fact that we can manage a certain risk by the same technology and the combination of a technology without the intervention, like in the chatbot, between that is becoming probably beyond control. We should retain control. Third is still remaining in the top risk, the concentration. Concentration is around the fact that there are limited number of providers. I mean, the providers scale, but there is, let's say, a growing and the fact that it is more accessible and more, let's say, and cheaper, it gives the capacity also for small firms to grow. But what matters is, of course, the large scale that is geographically concentrated, and that brings another domino effect into the geopolitical. That also has been mentioned by Jean-Paul earlier, and can be weaponized to some extent. So all these should be clearly be in our top priority management. How to handle, I think that some solutions have already been mentioned. I would list number one, the sandbox. Sandbox is something that associates public and private sector, brings together, gives the opportunity for everyone to probably look into responsible deployment before any additional new solutions are deployed, gives the possibility for us also to better understand, and that's something that I don't think that we have explored fully. Then, of course, the traditional regulatory, but I will leave also our colleagues to elaborate. I think that we have AI and DORA that are a good regulatory framework, but then the key final point is skills in terms of talent, skills in terms of people that cannot remain outside of these developments.
Thank you very much, Carlo. Let's get also Claude's perspective.
Yes, I subscribe to 100% of what Carlo said. To some extent, we are still in the semi-old world, and we are still able to address these risks with classical instruments like DORA or the AI Act. And I think that as we stand today, these are sufficient. If I go back to the AI world, I think today largely, the usage is on the back office side. To some extent, it's creeping into helping select investments, so into investment in the investment advisory space. And there we are still in the generative AI world. And so, we believe that risks are under control. Of course, there is hallucination risk, there is market manipulation risks, but to some extent we can manage those risks with the classical tools. If I'm projecting myself in the future, and I thought I would have to think in categories of the years to come, but when I listen again to I think this could be next week or tomorrow or whatever. The picture, I think, is a little bit more complex. From generative AI, we are already in agentic AI, and agentic AI already would allow high-performance investment advisory capabilities, even it would allow automated execution, so kind of robo-advisory or robo-capabilities. But then from there, we move into automatic AI, so, redefining intent and adjusting strategies automatically as we go along, which is a whole new game set if we apply that to asset management. And from there, we are not far away also for the next revolution, which is going to be quantum computing, which then, gives us capabilities in the IT space that we can not even imagine what that could do also in terms of cybercrime, coming back to one of your top priorities. And we know that, all the classical weapons that we have to combat this in terms of encryption, for instance, are gone, but we don't have the solutions. And so I think for us regulators now, it is going to be very difficult to quickly come to a new world, to quickly equip ourselves and our authorities also with totally different skill sets. I'm still part of this world where, you come from a legal or a finance background and then this is fine. I think in the supervised world already now, different skill sets are creeping into the C-suites and the boards. For our authorities, yes, we do hire data analysts, we do hire different skill sets in the IT sector, but not in this strategic thinking. And I think we need to quickly evolve also in this, because once we are in the world of automatic AI, once we have quantum computing, and once these things are there, we are dealing with risks that are unheard of and that we don't know what exactly they can do. We have seen the example now of Claude Mythos. Claude, of course, I have to like because it's a good system. Mythos I like as well, the myth, but we woke up one morning and it was a shock. And I don't think today we know how to deal with this shock. Authorities reacted in a panic mode and had meetings, all kinds of meetings with all kinds of people. but we don't have the solution. And this is only the beginning, and I think that this is now, unfortunately, happening much quicker than I had thought, listening to the panel, to the speech before. And I think we quickly have to equip ourselves also with different kinds of people.
Thank you, Claude. And let's also hear from Vasiliki.
So, of course, I agree with my colleagues, with Carlo and Claude, but I want to say that the biggest risk, in my view, is the fact that we trust, let's say, artificial intelligence more than we should, in the sense that usually when there is an outcome, sometimes, I mean, most of the times, this is not tested. This is not cross-checked to make sure that this is valid. And it can be, I mean, there could be deficiencies. Why? Because this works on the basis of data. And sometimes the data does not have always, I mean, does not have always the best quality, does not have always the highest quality. I think Jean-Paul mentioned about data, which I agree is the most important thing. If you want to make sure that the outcome is correct, it has to we also have to make sure that the data that is fed in the artificial intelligence, let's say, solution is also full. I mean, it has the complete, it has all the information, and also is accurate. So for me, this is the most important risk, because unrepresentative data can lead to unfair treatment of investors in financial, let's say, in our financial world, or inaccurate investment recommendations when we speak about artificial intelligence in the investment advice and all this. So this is why I spoke earlier about artificial intelligence, AI mind, because we need to make sure that we have people that can use their minds, let's say, to make sure that, as Huy mentioned about the capacity of to grow the capacity of people that can read then the relevant documentation, etc. But I believe that all the traditional capabilities of everybody which is in the financial world should remain, but be enhanced with this technological. I mean, it is very important, a business person, to understand the business of, let's say, an investment firm, to the business of a bank, whatever, but also to have in mind all the technological developments that are occurring in order to understand the risks and to understand whether this data is correct or not.
Thank you very much, Vasiliki. And let me turn now to the last question. And we'll start with Claude. So Claude, we're living in a digital environment. Do you think there would be a point where it would be realistic to say that we as regulators can move towards proactive, near real-time supervision, or does the speed of the evolution of the AI systems and the evolution of all the supervised entities make this objective structurally unachievable?
Well, I think that here it's really positive in my view, because from a technological point of view, we have a number of areas where we could already be, if we wanted, in a quasi real-time supervision, which for us regulators is the penultimate, nirvana that we were dreaming of, because that, of course, is very efficient and also makes our work in a way easier. And I can give a few examples where I believe that from a technological point of view, we could already be there. One is one of the most painful areas today, both for markets to comply with and for regulators to control, which is the prevention of money laundering and terrorist financing. Obviously, it is very important to work on this, because what people forget about these concepts is what is behind. And what is behind money laundering and terrorist financing? Terrorist financing is easy to understand. It's financing terrorist activity. But anti-money laundering is about, human trafficking, it's about child abuse, it's about a lot of really serious crime, organized crime, a lot of really nasty things. And here I think that, you know, in Europe we have today central registers of bank accounts in all jurisdictions under the fourth, I believe it was, anti-money laundering directive. If we added transactions to those registers and we interconnected those registers and we put AI tools on it, we can detect money laundering real time all over Europe. So from a technical point of view, it's very feasible. Market abuse is another domain. You know, market abuse is typically something where, you know, we are able today, if we want to move from a reactive, rule-based supervision system to a proactive behavioral analysis type of system by using AI and by detecting real-time market abuse. And there are many other applications. I think one of the big worries today is people selling illegally financial products through TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, you know, from within the European Union without a license or from outside of the European Union also very often. And we are really struggling today to get to the grips of this, and, you know, young people are not going to their bank and maybe get no proper MiFID advice, but they look at a YouTube video and then they purchase and then it's too late. So, and with crypto, certainly this is not helping. Again, there, I think if we applied AI in a proper way, we would be able to almost real-time detect these schemes that very often are fraudulent schemes with the help of technology. Now, I think the biggest problem we have in this area is not something we could we would typically think of. I think the biggest problems in this area, so more regulation and more level 1, 2, 3, and so on. I think the biggest problem here is that we have concerns in other areas. We have concerns of privacy, of confidentiality, we have concerns of basic human rights, we have concerns of mass surveillance, if I spin this further, and so on. But I think that you know, we should not stop trying to achieve this real-time supervision with AI and technology because of the risk associated with it. I think we should spend our energy to try to mitigate those risks so as to be able to make use of the technology to get there. I think that is the important point. And then I think also as regulators, we should be looking more at meeting startups and fintechs, because very often, as was mentioned also in Huy's speech, it is smaller nimble startups that have the solutions that we would need, but it is for us to also make the effort to better connect to these firms. This is not typically our world, but, you know, go to presentation, go to pitches, meet these people to be able to find the solutions and then use them.
Thank you very much, Claude. And let's get the perspective also of Vasiliki.
I will start with one of my favorite Greek sayings of an ancient philosopher, Heraclitus, which says "ta πάντα ρί," which means that everything constantly changes. So this is what we're living right now, and what Heraclitus wanted to say is that because everything constantly changes, we need to make sure that we constantly adapt to the changes. So this is our role, and this is what we should do. We should make sure that we are open-minded, we understand what is going on, we understand how we should adapt to the changes. We cannot, of course, we need to be forward-looking. We cannot always, know from now what is going to happen tomorrow with all the changes. However, we need to make sure that we have an understanding of the whole of the setup, let's say, so that we can that nobody should escape accountability. We need to make sure, as supervisors, that whatever goes on, whatever happens, we can identify the problems and then try to see who is accountable for that. So I think this is the biggest bet for us, to make sure that we have clear understanding of the developments and how we can progress, because progress should be in our everyday life.
Thank you, Vasiliki. And last but not least, Carlo.
Yeah, thank you. Broadly speaking, I agree with what has been said. Just a couple of additional points. First, technology brings, let's say, supervision on two sides. Using technology for our supervision or supervising technology. Now, on the latter, I think that we have been probably been doing good progress in the sense that if I look at AI, one of the, let's say, approach that in my view make a lot of sense is to look at model validation. It's something that we know and we readapt. I think that Vasiliki was using exactly the same. But this is just one example. I'm more worried about, let's say, ensuring that the traditional principle knowledge, for instance, looking at the organizations, that knowledge at the level of the board, for instance, where ultimate responsibility lies, is all present. But again, that is an adaptation to the new context. Whilst looking at the use of technology by supervisors and supervision, taking the dilemma driver or passenger, I think that if we are driver, I think that with the SUBTECH initiative, I look at Verena and Jean-Paul, that they are co-leading in their respective organization initiative to share, because that is where it is becoming a co-driver. If somebody has a good idea, is developing, that is sharing with the others. That is not becoming passenger, because I think that everyone brings its own experience and the capacity to, let's say, further develop the supervisory model is something that is a sort of collective. And that's where all together we need to probably come to good solutions. Real time, we are getting close, because again, on market supervision, there are solutions. I don't know exactly of which generation you can categorize, but we are making many progress, at least to reduce the time lag where our traditional intervention, let's say, has always been probably a little bit distant from the facts. And that brings the effectiveness of our actions into a real world, rather than, let's say, being distant and being a little bit disconnected from the context. That would be in itself something extremely helpful.
Thank you very much, Carlo. I think these are fascinating discussions. We can discuss for hours, but certainly, and has been shown also by Huy's presentation, is that we're living in a fast-changing world. I think AI is here to stay, so we need to adapt to that. We need to find ways to adapt to that, and it's not easy. And I think I'll close with the point that you mentioned, Huy, is that there's so much spent on technology. There's so much spent. There is a lot of work done, I should say, basically on the governance structures and organizational and institutions and so on. But we lack the talent. A lot of institutions, a lot of organizations, they lack the talent to adapt to this AI world, basically. And we need to create, as you said, we need to create the people that will create the future, right? So, but obviously, there's a lot of work to be done from the regulatory side as well. So thank you very much. Thank you very much all for being here today. And now we go to the the most important part of the event, which is to honor the previous chairpersons, chairmen and chairwomen.
A warm thank you to our panelists for this strong and forward-looking discussion. It gives me now great pleasure to call Dr. Theocharidis, our chairman, and Mr. Panikos Vakou, our vice chairman, for an honorary ceremony honoring former CySEC chairs who have contributed to its growth. May I kindly invite Mrs. Keti Soroku to come on stage to receive a commemorative award on behalf of her late husband, Mr. Frixos Sorokos. May I kindly invite Mr. Andreas Charalambous to proceed to the stage to accept his commemorative recognition. May I respectfully call upon Mr. Marios Kliridis to join us on stage for the presentation of his award. May I invite Mr. George Charalambous to come forward and receive his commemorative award. May I respectfully invite Mrs. Dimitra Kalogiru to the stage to accept this token of appreciation and recognition. Honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the formal program. Before our cocktail reception, I would like to thank you for joining us this evening. We appreciate your presence and engagement. Please now join us for a cocktail reception and continued networking. Have a wonderful evening.